Sherman's close calls. Civil War hero General William Tecumseh Sherman served as commanding general of the United States Army following the war between the states. When letters flooded into Washington complaining of Indian atrocities against the settlers, Sherman wasn't convinced. Still, he decided to travel to Indian Territory himself anyway to determine the situation for himself. Sherman was convinced that the stories in the letters were exaggerations, but he was wrong. While in Indian Territory, Sherman faced not one, but two close calls with Indians. Sherman traveled through northern Texas and up into Indian Territory in what is now the state of Oklahoma in a Doherty ambulance with only 15 escorts. During the time of Sherman's visit, there was a Kiowa warrior named Satanta, not to be confused with Santana, the rock and Latino band formed by Carlos Santana. The Kiowa chief, Satanta, was organizing a massive raid in northern Texas. Satanta was known as the Great Orator. Like many politicians today, he was fond of the sound of his own voice. Some people would have considered him a windbag. A few years before Sherman's visit, Colonel John M. Chivington led a 700-man army against mostly peaceful Cheyenne and Arapaho tribespeople, consisting mostly of women, children, and infants. It was a horribly brutal attack. Later called the Sand Creek Massacre for good reason, it caused public outcry in Washington. It generated sympathy for the Indians. Washington sent a message to troops in Indian Territory that was loud and clear. Be nice to the Indians. Indian warriors like Satanta took advantage of the policy. Satanta wasn't peace-loving like the ones in Colorado. He saw raiding settlers as a good way to obtain horses and other goods from settlers. He convinced more than 100 Kiowa warriors to join him on raids in northern Texas. They agreed because they were impressed with Satanta's speaking skills. But before they began their raids, Satanta insisted that they consult the Owl Prophet. Also named Mamenti, he used the occult, also with a little imagination and creativity, to foretell events. Whenever tribes wanted a successful battle, they consulted the Owl Prophet. While Sherman was riding along the Butterfield Trail in his ambulance, the Owl Prophet met with Satanta and his band of 100 warriors. That night, he went into a trance. Some could have sworn they heard the rustling of wings. Then the Owl Prophet told them that two parties would come along the Butterfield Trail the following day. A small party would come first, but they were not allowed to attack it. Then another party would come along later. They were allowed to attack that one, and they would be successful. So the next day, those Indian warriors hit up on a bluff, and sure enough, a small party went by. Sherman's party. They let him go, never realizing that he was a great white warrior. Sherman managed to escape unharmed. Proof positive that the devil is a dog on God's leash. The Indians waited another 2 or 3 hours, and sure enough, another wagon train approached. The Owl Prophet nodded to Satanta, Satanta nodded to the warriors, and down the hill they went, surrounding the small wagon train of 8 teamsters and about 40 mules. They killed 7 of those men and captured the mules. The Indians thought they were pretty swell. In their tribe, you gained esteem whenever you won in a battle. It was part of their culture. One surviving teamster staggered into the fort in Texas where Sherman was staying that night. Sherman was alarmed when he heard the news. His trip had been peaceful. When he arrived at Fort Sill, he talked to Colonel Grierson about it. Colonel Grierson was in charge of the fort. They decided to consult the local Indian agent, Laurie Tatum. Laurie Tatum was a Quaker who firmly believed in peace, but he also believed that peace could only be achieved when the Indians received the same justice as other peoples in the area. He didn't believe in preferential treatment. As Indian agent, Tatum's job was to distribute meat, flour, and other goods to the Indians so they had to come if they wanted the goodies, but they were always careful to come on Saturday rather than Sunday. They didn't want to listen to Tatum's sermons. So on that particular Sunday, at Grierson's request, Tatum asked the first Indian to arrive to gather the others and come at noon for a special meeting. As I mentioned earlier, killing the enemy in battle was a way to increase your social standing among the community. Satanta considered himself a hero. He couldn't wait to boast about his prowess as a warrior to Laurie Tatum. When Tatum mentioned the attack on the Teamsters, Satanta swelled with pride and pointed to his chest. "I did it," he said. "I organized the attack." Satanta was sure that Tatum would be impressed. Tatum was horrified. If there was ever a time to misread the room, it was at that meeting with pacifist Quaker Laurie Tatum. Satanta thought that because of Chivington's brutal attack years earlier, he could attack the settlers with impunity. Satanta was a victim of misinformation. Still not reading the room right, Satanta then went on to demand weapons. Tatum explained he wasn't authorized to give weapons, along with flour and meat. He'd have to talk to Colonel Grierson at the fort. "There's another powerful white chief at the fort," Tatum said. "I can set up a meeting for you." Satanta agreed, and the meeting was arranged at Fort Sill the following day. When Satanta and the other Indians arrived at the fort, it seemed like a calm, typical, lazy Sunday afternoon. A few officers were strolling about. There were no women or children to be seen, but Satanta and the other Indians didn't think about that. Colonel Grierson and General Sherman were sitting on the front porch of Colonel Grierson's home. All the windows were shuttered, and the Indians couldn't see inside. Along with them was an interpreter. When all the Indians were assembled, Sherman asked who was responsible for the attack on the Teamsters. Satanta's chest swelled. "I'm the man," he said. "I'm responsible for the attack, and we won the battle." "Doesn't seem like a brave battle to me," Sherman replied. "There were more than 100 of you and less than a dozen Teamsters. I see it as murder, and I'm going to arrest you." That's when Satanta began to backpedal. "I didn't do any actual fighting," he said. "The other guys did the fighting. I just did the speaking," he added. Realizing he was in hot water, Satanta ordered the other Indians to pull out their weapons and start firing. That's when General Sherman faced his second close call in Indian territory. Before Satanta and the others could shoot, the shutters on Colonel Grierson's house flew open. The Indians saw dozens of members of the 4th Infantry. The black men the Indians dubbed the Buffalo Soldiers. They had their weapons pointed right at the Indians. Realizing they were outnumbered, the Indians turned and fled, but several leaders were arrested, including Satanta. Satanta languished in prison in Huntington, Texas, until his death 17 years later. Thank you for watching Okie Lore. I'm Sue Merriam. If you enjoyed watching this video, hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever a new video comes out. And I'll see you in the next one.